told you that he stopped doing stand-up because he had 7 TV shows.
See, the reason I stopped was because I had 7 shows on TV all at once.
The only problem is when he stopped.
Hey folks, buckle up for some wild ride in the entertainment industry gossip. Katt Williams, the no-nonsense comedian, is back in the headlines, and this time he's seemingly aiming his verbal arrows at none other than Steve Harvey. You know Katt doesn't hold back, and it seems like he's gearing up to spill some fresh details about Steve Harvey. Rumor has it that Steve might have had some questionable intentions toward Katt, echoing a vibe similar to what allegedly happened with Bernie Mac. There's even buzz that Katt dodged being part of the Kings of Comedy, fearing he might end up as some sacrificial offering, Bernie Mac style. Now that's some spicy tea we're about to sip, so grab your popcorn, kick back, and brace yourselves for the drama. All right, buckle up for this wild story. So, Katt Williams and Steve Harvey haven't exactly been exchanging Christmas cards for the past decade, and there's a whole saga behind it. Picture this. Jamie Foxx, playing radio host, throws a curveball by playing a clip of Williams dissing Harvey right before their joint comedy gig during the Christmas season. Katt, on the phone, goes on a rant, giving a heads up about what's about to go down. But here's the kicker. He straight up tells Steve that once he hits the stage, Steve's reign as the king of comedy is in jeopardy. Cut to a baffled Steve Harvey calling in, expressing his confusion. He's like, "I've always been cool with Katt," and claims that back in LA, he didn't even know who Katt Williams was. Yep, you heard it right. Steve Harvey asking, "Whoever Katt Williams is, call me." Steve even dished out some cryptic wisdom, saying dogs don't bark at parked cars, only ones that are moving. He threw a bit of shade at Katt, implying that if the moon barks back at the dog becomes famous. He said, "My grandfather used to tell me that dogs don't bark at parked cars, only cars that are moving. Dogs bark at the moon all the time, but if the moon barks back at the dog becomes famous." But Katt wasn't having any of it. He went all in, taking shots at Steve's performance, reputation, hair, and more during the showdown. He even called Steve out for copying styles and disrespecting those who paved the way before him. Katt labeled Steve a comedy imposter, not holding back on the criticism. And now, Katt Williams just went off on Steve Harvey in a recent interview. Though Williams spoke on a laundry list of who's who in the black comedy scene of the last 20 years, he seemed to have a particular dislike for Harvey, accusing the Family Feud host of a long list of offenses. Katt pulled no punches, accusing Steve of harboring jealousy towards Bernie Mac, and even spilled the tea on their that spanned years. According to Katt, Bernie sensed that Steve was messing with his movie roles, going as far as trying to swipe a part in Ocean's 11, causing major drama. Katt claimed that Steve, during an appearance on Club Shay Shay, played it cool about not wanting to be a movie star, but secretly, he was competing with Bernie Mac for those coveted roles. But wait, there's more. Katt also threw shade at Steve, accusing him of swiping material from comedian Mark Curry and allegedly fibbing about being homeless. In Katt's words, this is the same Steve who watched Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now he's got a sitcom where he's the principal, suited up with a high top fade, making all black men think he's got the best lineup in the business. But surprise, surprise, it's a man unit, not the real deal. Shots fired. Then you ask him, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. This the same Negro that hated on Bernie Mac with this same thing. There are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asked for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good and look like Mr. Potato Head. There ain't none. You have to have range, he continued. Katt Williams didn't hold back in calling out Steve Harvey's alleged fib about being homeless. Katt straight up said, "That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey was never homeless. When Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago, he was making $3,000 a show in cash and doing 5 shows a week. They just tell the stories." And here's the kicker. Katt spilled the beans that he was offered the chance to be the 4th king of comedy, but turned it down, citing Steve's alleged mistreatment of Bernie Mac. Katt dropped this bomb. Because the whole time Bernie was here, you were acting like you were funnier than him. You stop it. That man was funnier than all of y'all. Shots fired once again. As Katt Williams' interview on Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast continues to make waves, more celebrities are chiming in on his explosive claims. Ed Lover, the legendary media personality, hopped on his podcast, "Come on, son," to back up Williams' assertion that Steve Harvey engaged in some unfavorable behavior toward his fellow King of Comedy performer, Bernie Mac. Williams goes on to say that he was supposed to be one of the kings of comedy, that they approached him after Bernie passed, Lover recaps in the episode, but he didn't want to go on the Kings of Comedy tour because of Steve Harvey's treatment of Bernie Mac. He has a lot of respect for Bernie Mac. Lover went on to explain that he had been friends with Mac until his dying day, and that Mac told him the same story about Harvey as well. The stuff that Katt Williams said about Steve Harvey calling to try to get Bernie's role on Ocean's 11 and that kind of stuff, Bernie told me out of his own mouth. I believe Bernie Mac when he said Steve Harvey hated on him, he concluded. Meanwhile, fans are divided on the matter, with some siding with Katt Williams and others expressing conflicting opinions. One fan said, Katt did not lie about Harvey and Bernie. Bernie found out that Steve Harvey had been going to producers lying on him so they would not give him a show of his own on TV. He found out what Harvey was doing, through a source connected. Bernie said he will never ever be on the same stage with him again in life. Bernie died not dealing with Harvey. No forgiveness. Harvey tried playing it off at Bernie's funeral, saying he and Bernie had come to terms of love with each other. Lies, he tell. Katt Williams is speaking nothing but the truth, and SH did steal the show ideas from Mark Curry. Do the math. While another disagrees, saying, whatever happened, it was back in the day. I'm sure there are a lot of actors, actresses, and comedians who did unsavory things to get to where they are. Steve is definitely not the only one. As far as people stealing other people's material, that happens among all comedians. It sounds to me as if Katt Williams is being bitter because his life is not on track with Steve's. Hater! Get your life, Katt, because I'm sure that there are people that he doesn't like and that he pilfered material from others also. Everybody is not gonna like everybody. It's called life.
On the Katt Williams interview on Club Shay Shay. The interview heard round the world. And I don't know, my take is probably going to be really, really boring.
So Bernie Mac's daughter hopped on TikTok to share her thoughts about the Katt Williams interview on Club Shay Shay. She kicked things off by acknowledging that it's been 15 years since her dad passed away, and she isn't deeply involved in the comedy world. She emphasized not having met Katt Williams while her dad was alive, but from what she's heard her dad say, he always seemed like a stand-up guy. She found the interview hilarious and entertaining, noting that Katt dropped numerous one-liners that will probably be worn out in 2024. In response to people feeling it was sad or like watching uncles squabble, she pointed out the misconception that comedians always get along. Drawing parallels to family dynamics, she explained that comedy can be cutthroat and competitive behind the scenes. Expressing gratitude, she appreciated Katt Williams for giving her dad props and flowers, feeling that it was genuine. She acknowledged that even years after her dad's passing, it warms her heart to know that the man she knew was genuinely appreciated. Despite it being years since Bernie Mac's passing, she expressed love and respect for Katt Williams, and even mentioned her eagerness to have a conversation with him, finding it likely to be entertaining and full of gems.
The thing with Steve Harvey is that he used my material on both his platforms.
Yeah.
After I talked to him, I saw him at Def Jam, I went up and talked to him, I said, man, you're using my material.
Also, in recent discussions, Mark Curry spilled some details, asserting that Steve Harvey blatantly recycled his material for jokes on his shows. This isn't a fresh conflict, as Mark has been throwing shade about Steve lifting his jokes since Harvey's NBC talk show days. The explosive video now has Steve Harvey and Mark Curry caught up in some serious comedy. Mark claims that Steve, who once hosted Little Big Shots on NBC, didn't just swipe one but two of his jokes. Interestingly, Mark reveals that he had confronted Steve about it in the past, but according to him, the alleged joke thievery persisted.
Mark Curry says that you're still stealing his jokes.
Hey man, listen to me.
Yeah.
Now this, I'm getting sick of this right here.
Yeah.
Mark Curry need to grow up.
Now, Mark, who's 62, spilled the tea to TMZ, saying that Steve jacked his Halloween bit, a personal story about growing up, but Steve wasn't having any of it. He straight up denied the accusations, saying Mark couldn't even name the supposedly stolen joke. Things got heated real quick, with Steve telling Mark to get a life and get a career. Steve went on a rant, saying he hasn't stolen a joke in 35 years, and dared Mark to name the joke he's talking about. He even threw in a grow-up man for good measure. But here's the kicker. Mark wasn't just making stuff up. The comedian came armed with receipts, proving his point and turning up the heat in this comedy feud. Mark Curry took his his beef with Steve Harvey to Instagram and dropped some serious receipts in a video that's now deleted. Basically, he called out Steve for allegedly stealing a bunch of jokes from him for his show. In this video, Mark compared an episode from his 90s sitcom Hanging with Mr. Cooper, where he talked about rocking a brown box as a UPS costume for Halloween. Surprise, surprise, Steve made the exact same joke in a 2015 episode of his show. Mark Curry isn't the lone comedian who's had a showdown with Steve Harvey. It's intriguing how Steve began his comedy journey as part of a crew, sharing laughs on stage. However, he later ventured solo and skyrocketed to fame with various TV shows. The twist? Along the way, it seems he may have ruffled some feathers, including those of his comedy companions. And we're not talking about just any group here. It's the original Kings of Comedy, featuring legends like Bernie Mac. If you were tuning in for laughs in the early 2000s, you likely caught wind of the original Kings of Comedy show. But if not, buckle up because there's more to Steve Harvey's comedy story than you might think. Alright, so let me take you back 2 decades when Steve Harvey and his crew rocked the comedy world with the original Kings of Comedy tour, earning themselves a solid spot in the Comedy Hall of Fame. It was a game changer, breaking records and basically shaping the comedy scene we know today. The squad included D.L. Hewley, Cedric the Entertainer, and the one and only Bernie Mac. Each had their own style, diving into African-American life and those black-white differences.
Why? Because the whole time Bernie was here, you was acting like you was funnier than him. The reason you was supposed to go last is because it was your tour. Tell the truth. It was Steve's tour. Of course you gotta close if it's your tour. That's why it was such a big deal. But you couldn't do it, because you can't beat the best.
Now, Bernie Mac was the laugh riot of the bunch, delivering that hard-edged humor. Steve Harvey, on the other hand, went all in, getting aggressive with the audience, roasting folks in the front row about their hair, clothes, and career choices. But here's the twist. Even though Bernie was killing it, Steve closed the show. Now, the plot thickens. It seems Steve might have been a tad jealous of Bernie's approach. Even Steve admitted he felt a bit threatened by Bernie Mac, sparking some that lasted for years. At least that's the latest scoop from one of the band members spilling the beans to the world. Back in the days of the original Kings of Comedy tour, there were whispers about some tension between Steve Harvey and the late Bernie Mac. Now, the cat's out of the bag. So, Steve Harvey's been basking in the limelight for ages, winning over not just co-workers and industry folks, but the whole public. He was the morning show guy, and even now, he's a face you'd recognize in almost any room. But turns out, the sweet image he puts on screen isn't the real deal. Behind the scenes, he's apparently quite a pain to work with, and folks have had enough. It's not just a little workplace annoyance either. Reports spill the beans on a memo Steve sent to his staffers that's made people see a whole different side of him. Let's just say, the news about his work relationships is raising some eyebrows, and not in a good way. Sometimes it's better not to know the nitty-gritty details, and this might be one of those times. But hey, we're here to spill all the juicy details. So, Steve Harvey dropped a memo that pretty much shattered any niceness pretense, drawing a clear line between himself and his coworkers, making it seem like they were beneath him. In this memo, he straight up said, "My security team will stop everyone from standing at my door who have the intent to see or speak to me. I want all the ambushing to stop now." He laid it out even for the TV staff, saying they must schedule an appointment and not even think about trying to chat with him in the hallway. No impromptu meetings, folks. It's all about appointments now. And get this, he warned them not to walk with him. The memo read, "There will be no meetings in my dressing room, no stopping by or popping in. No one. Do not come to my dressing room unless invited. Do not open my dressing room door. If you open my door, expect to be removed. My security team will stop everyone from standing at my door who have the intent to see or speak to me. Do not approach me while I'm in the makeup chair unless I ask to speak with you directly. Either knock or use the doorbell. I am seeking more free time for me throughout the day. Do not wait in any hallway to speak to me. I hate being ambushed. Please make an appointment. I promise you I will not entertain you in the hallway, and do not attempt to walk with me. Everyone, do not take offense to the new way of doing business. It is for the good of my personal life and enjoyment." Now, when this memo hit the headlines, did Steve apologize or try to smooth things over? Nope. Instead, he doubled down on his words. In response, he said, "I could not find a way to walk from the stage to my dressing room, to sit in my makeup chair, to walk from my dressing room to the stage, or to just sit and have lunch without somebody just walking in." He justified the memo by claiming people were taking advantage of his open door policy. So there you have it. No apologies, just a "you folks took advantage of my niceness" vibe. Most people might want to find reason in Steve's perspective on this subject for not wanting to talk to the people he works with. But it's not like this is the first time he's been a bit of a jerk and expected everyone to just nod along. Despite his questionable takes and comedy leaning heavily on gender stereotypes, stereotypes, he likes to play the relationship expert, handing out advice left and right. But here's the kicker. His own love life is a hot mess. Steve is rocking his third marriage, and get this, his third wife was once the mistress to his second wife. Talk about tangled webs. And as if that weren't enough, he's allegedly been a repeat offender in the cheating department. And guess what? He doesn't seem to see what the big deal is. Oh no, he tried to justify it, but here's the twist. According to Steve, men can cheat because there are plenty of women ready to jump into their arms. Yeah, it's as cringeworthy as it sounds. If you connect the dots, it seems like Steve might be living by these very words, especially considering his history with marriages. All right, let's rewind to 1981 when Steve Harvey was still hustling to make a name for himself. He tied the knot with Marjorie Harvey, but things took a rocky turn. As Steve worked on his comedy career, rumors flew about him cheating on Marcia and leaving her while she was expecting their third child. The couple eventually divorced in 1994. Marcia, however, kept things low-key and focused on her own life, even publishing a few books. Then, in 1996, Steve went down the aisle again, this time with Mary Shackelford, a makeup artist. The rumor mill hinted that their relationship might have started while Steve was still married to Marcia. Talk about a serial cheat. Steve and Mary's marriage lasted for 9 years before they called it quits in 2006. Mary, usually tight-lipped, stumbled upon a private letter from Steve's mistress, causing quite the stir. She spilled the beans in a 2017 interview, claiming Steve cheated on her multiple times, even with his current wife, Marjorie. Noticing a pattern? Adding fuel to the fire, Mary accused Steve of physical A during their marriage, which Steve vehemently denied. In 2017, Mary leveled various accusations against the famous TV personality, including emotional distress caused by his interference in her custody dispute. She sought a hefty $60 million in damages, but the case was eventually tossed out. So, after Mary's accusations caused quite a stir, the media jumped on the bandwagon, stirring up a whole lot of trouble among Steve Harvey's fan base. People were split. Some defended Harvey, questioning Mary's motives, while others were disappointed and even angry at the renowned TV host. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Steve Harvey himself addressed the charges, slamming the lawsuit as ridiculous and denying all the claims made against him. He went on to suggest that he believed the lawsuit was just a ploy to squeeze money out of him.
They call her the green-eyed. She's been seen everywhere with.
But hold on, the alleged cheating saga doesn't end there. Recently, Steve and his current wife, Marjorie Harvey, found themselves in the midst of another scandal. Podcaster Tasha K spilled the tea on Instagram, claiming that Steve was allegedly cheating on Marjorie with his private chef, the so-called green-eyed monster. This chef had been spotted everywhere with Steve, and Tasha accused him of being unfaithful in his marriage to Marjorie. Breaking away from years of keeping their relationship out of the gossip mill, Steve Harvey, the TV host and comedian, is now facing allegations of infidelity with his private chef. Tasha K spilled the beans on her podcast, Unwind with Tasha K, stating that she got wind of information about the 66-year-old entertainer and his beautiful private chef, who was allegedly hired as his vegan mistress. Now, you'd expect some sympathy for Marjorie as the apparent victim, but it seems the public isn't entirely convinced she's a saint herself. Over the years, rumors and allegations surrounding the couple have hinted that all might not be well. Sources even spilled details about Marjorie's less-than-savory past that surfaced several years ago, adding more fuel to the rumor mill. Backtracking a bit, sources spilled the beans on Marjorie's past a few years ago, with rumors resurfacing in 2017 that dubbed her Lady Heroin. The online nickname came from Marjorie's previous marriages to two dealers, particularly the first, Jim Townsend, a reputed lord in Memphis. Whispers even hinted at Marjorie's alleged involvement in the ring, with authorities supposedly threatening her arrest if Townsend didn't cooperate. While this is part of Marjorie's history, it has cast a shadow over her marriage to Steve Harvey, with critics pointing to it as evidence of Steve's hypocrisy. Pair that with allegations of Steve's infidelity, especially in his past marriages, and it's a recipe for some serious scrutiny. Okay, so Katt Williams isn't the only one who's had a public spat with Steve Harvey. Recently, Monique flipped the script during her appearance on Steve's show, making it clear she wasn't there to just take the hot seat. Monique, with her comedic flair, took control of the show and spilled some industry tea involving her and the host. She didn't mince words, expressing how she felt like she got thrown under the bus for speaking her truth, but the on-air heat wasn't reserved for Steve Harvey alone. Monique threw shade at a few other big names in the industry, dropping names like Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Lee Daniels, and even her brother Steve. She stood her ground, emphasizing that she wasn't backing down and wasn't in the wrong. So, a while back on Steve's show, Monique spilled some some truth bombs about her struggles in Hollywood. The Oscar winner shared how she got tagged as difficult and blacklisted in the industry because she dared to ask for more pay during the Oscar publicity campaign for Precious in 2009. She didn't sugarcoat it, saying, "I said no to some very powerful people." For context, back in 2009, Monique had a plan to do a press tour for the movie Precious, co-produced by Oprah and Tyler Perry. They wanted to ride the wave of her Oscar nomination buzz, but here's the kicker. They weren't planning to pay her for the tour, and she was already drained from filming. Monique decided to skip the tour and take a breather with her family. Seemed like a straightforward call, and everyone seemed cool with it. She said, "Oprah, I'm doing a talk show. I'm doing a comedy tour. I have a husband and I have babies. I have a little bit of downtime and I'm going to take advantage of it. So I'm not going anywhere because I'm not obligated to go anywhere. I've done my part." So we mutually agreed to disagree. That was it. Next thing I know, I am considered difficult and hard to work with. Fast forward a few weeks, and bam! Media stories start popping up, painting Monique as difficult to work with. Suddenly, no one wanted to cast her, despite her winning an Oscar for her role in Precious. Imagine seeing all your hard work go down the drain. Monique started putting two and two together, realizing someone was out to get her. In a recent chat with The Hollywood Reporter, she spilled the beans that Precious director Lee Daniels admitted she got blackballed for not playing the game. Monique's even called out Oprah and Tyler Perry, asking for an apology that, as far as we know, is still MIA.
She said, "If you don't want me to have your brother on the show, I will cancel the show. No show will happen. But I wanted to call you up to see how you felt first." Now I begin to see commercials with my brother, my mother, my father, and my other brother.
A few months after the press tour mess, Monique spilled the beans on Comedy Central about how Oprah invited Monique's brother Gerald and her parents to her show. Here's the backstory. Monique's brother abused her when she was 7 to 11, and she had been open about it in a 2008 interview with Essence. Monique confided in Oprah about her strained relationship with her parents due to the abuse, and Oprah seemed understanding. Monique said she was cool with Oprah inviting Gerald, but didn't want to be part of it. Fast forward to the taping, and Monique was blindsided seeing commercials featuring her family. Oprah had gone back on her word, pretending to be caring. Monique demanded an apology, but Oprah offered zilch. No private, no public apology, nothing. In 2018, Monique stirred the pot again, proposing a Netflix boycott because they didn't offer her the same pay as other big-name comedians like Chris Rock and Amy Schumer for a stand-up special. And guess who she called out for not having her back? Yep, Steve Harvey. She confronted him about a comment he made saying she had burned too many bridges, and she didn't hold back on how hurt she was. But surprise, surprise, Steve didn't seem to care much about Mo's feelings. It left a lot of people surprised because the Steve Harvey they saw on TV didn't match up with this real-life drama. And as it turns out, that was just the beginning, with Steve stirring up controversies one after another throughout his time in the limelight. It is understandable that some of you might be perplexed and trying to make sense of the swirling rumors about Steve Harvey. It's reasonable to doubt these claims, especially considering he's a beloved figure. However, if there's even a hint of truth in these rumors, then it's quite astonishing. Share your thoughts on whether you believe Katt Williams may be telling the truth or if it's just another rumor. Drop your comments and we'll catch you in the next video.